trusty rusty Phantom Titan. And it's sitting on the shelf. And then I've got a little Lynx. And an old school Scorpion. Eventually I'll probably pick up another one of them as well. And, oh, here's this guy taking a nap. And that, in a nutshell, is my force. I also got some other ground forces on in my cases down below. Hiding underneath my desk. I got more stuff sitting down there. And that's about it. So I'm going to remount this, and we'll get back to some painting and such. Okay, so let's get to work here. So this fella, like I said, we were going to paint him up kind of like the outlaw Josie Wales. For his flesh, I used Vallejo's tan. In Games Workshop terms, or other painting terms, this is basically the dark flesh. And then I hit him with some, I believe it was Ogren flesh, just to get into some of the crevices. It's not quite as dark as I'd like, but that's alright. So, just for giggles, let's start with that. And let's go with some, yeah, you know what, we're just going to do this real simple like, because we're just painting this guy up to just a tabletop type standard. We're not going crazy on him. So let's just switch right over to some dwarf flesh. Now dwarf flesh, it is a bit of a jump, but when you're talking about the small areas like these War Machine models, I mean, he's small. Like compared to a Space Marine, like look how small he is. He's actually almost a scale to what a real human should be to a Space Marine. And so his face details are quite small, and he's kind of got like this gnarled up looking scar on his face, and you know, really he's like this whole, well, the whole vibe was the outlaw Josie Wales, and so that's what we'll keep running with. So we'll just lay out some dwarf flesh. Well, sometimes when you don't use these things, they kind of get clogged up on you. Now often, if your bottles do get clogged up on you, like the Vallejo, the Reapers, often I find it handy to keep, obviously, something around that you can poke the top in with. And for that I just use a brass pin that's smaller than what the opening is for the nozzle, and then just clear the clog, and then just kind of wiggle the rod around, and you end up with some paint on you, but you just wipe that off, and away you go, and you're back in business. So let's lay some of this color down. Yeah, that should be good. And so let's grab our nice fine detail brush. For really fine detail brush on a model, I use these Winsor Newtons, because they've got these, well, yeah, you can probably see right there. It's got a really fine point, and it's really good for getting into these crevices and such. So, and I always paint on a palette. Whenever I paint, I always paint on a palette. Never from the bottle. Well, these drop bottles, I mean, you can't obviously paint from the bottle, but so now you might be thinking to yourself, well, why on earth would he make a big deal about painting from a palette? Well, for one, it's easier on your brushes. When you're painting from the pot, like say for example, you're using like these pots. Well, a lot of people I'll see just dunk their brush right in to the pot. And when you do that, you end up hitting the bottom, and your bristles will fray, and you'll end up causing more paint to get up into the furrow of the brush. And so if you're going to paint from the pot, what I usually do is I just grab right from the lip here, grab a dollop of paint, and slap it onto my palette. But again, always paint with a palette, just because you can maintain control of your colors. It's obviously easier to mix, and it's just all around a smarter way to paint. I'd highly recommend, especially if you're new to painting, to get used to using a palette when you paint. And so, just like that, you paint his hand. Sometimes you find you have to go over a little spot twice, but that's fine, as sometimes when you work with a paint very thinly. Now, let's see here if we can get this to show you here. Let's see here. Come on. Come on. Okay. You can see his hand. You can see his hand there. And so that was just one simple little highlight right on his hands, and there we got color depth. And for this, I'll probably only go maybe another highlight up, just for tabletop standard and such. And so yeah, another thing I'd recommend too for new painters is mounting your model onto a handle, something to hold on to while you're painting. Often you'll see in a lot of the painting videos, for the people who are familiar with the Vault, we'll probably seen this little thing here. This is a little thing I made out of resin. It was out of something anyway, and so I said, well, that's perfect shape, and what I'd like to do is put like a texture on here so that it's easier to hold on to this thing. And so all you do is you get yourself some blue tack. I can't remember what the heck they call it in Europe. We call it blue tack. They call it ARG. Somebody told me to. I forget now. Anywho, poster board something? No. Anyway, you just put your model right on there. Like, if I say for example this fella, we'll just slap him on there, and away you go. And you're painting. Well, you're thinking to yourself, well, Chris, why would you even bother putting them onto that? Well, for one, when you're painting really small models like this, it's a pain to hold onto that base, and see your fingers get all up in your area, and you're going to end up touching your model, and the oils on your fingers are your model's worst enemy, especially when you're trying to do a nice paint job on a model. And so that's why pretty much everybody who paints professionally or is an advanced painter uses a handle, and because the oils on your finger are your #1 enemy. And also your hand kind of cramps up after a while. At least mine does anyway, if I'm holding on to just the base, and I find it kind of a pain to try and hold on to such a small thing for a long period of time. And so I'll paint his fingers here. And like I said before, these videos aren't meant to be completely informative. I mean, I might drop a tidbit of info here and there, as there is quite a bit of garbage and info rattling around in my brain, so it's not like I'm an encyclopedia of knowledge. But if one was to ask me a particular kind of question, I'm sure I could scare up some sort of answer for them. Don't claim